Welcome to the Husk Guys Podcast. Oh, yeah!
What's up, everybody? It is Wednesday, December 11th. Husk Guys are here, and we have somehow an unbelievable amount of content to cover on a Wednesday after the season is over. Truly 7 days ago, I didn't know if we were going to have enough content to cover on a weekly podcast, and somehow in the last 7 days, more news has broken in Nebraska football than the last year combined. I mean, just like, you know, the hangover from losing to Iowa, it was very, very bad, but changed extremely quickly. We're going to rehash every single aspect of it. David is here. My brother, Andrew. Andrew, how are we doing on this Wednesday evening?
Yeah, I mean, we were talking right before this. I've been working nights the last few, and so you get into this weird days of like everything is flipped around, and you're like a shell of yourself to the world. And I just wake up to just bombshells of news
Every day.
I mean, just like
mayhem.
I'm in the middle of the afternoon, and I'm trying to like backtrack like 8 hours of news, and it's hard to keep up. So yeah, we got a little bit to cover here, but we got some things that are pouring in our favor. I feel, at least to begin.
The vibes have shifted.
It almost feels like the off season is starting. I know it's not the off season; it's bowl season, which we're not used to this. Yeah. But it's like the beginning of the off season starts now, and man, we're getting hit with some great news here, some not so great news, and it's a lot to process. Yeah,
and I wish I had tweeted this, but I could do it. We'll just do the error version. I spent way too much time creating that graphic. Did you see my hype train graphic? Like right after the Iowa game, everyone's in shambles of like, you know, that's the lowest point that the annual Iowa loss is like the lowest point. And then right after the Iowa loss, it was like a ton of guys hit the portal, and we're like in the very bottom. But like you have to like embrace that period to be like, okay, this is the bottom, because then right after that, everything opens up. Bowl season opens up, transfer portal season opens up, new coaches come up. Endless hope possibility, and that we're entering that phase right now of like the rapid, like all in the last week, which we're going to cover right now, is amazing stuff. But it's like the Iowa is the rock bottom. Everything else rises and rises and rises all the way until August.
Like when I saw that there was a breaking news article that we are hosting a transfer portal punter, I started to get that familiar feeling of hope again.
We also have.
We're hosting a punter. Hell yeah.
Forget it. All right. So let's jump into this stuff. We got a lot of good stuff to cover. Okay. So first, before we kick things off, it's bowl season. It's also a Christmas season. We got a ton of amazing stuff going on. Long snapper, Andrew H. That's right. Guys, go to pipeline-jerky.com. Every bag that you buy directly supports the Huskers NIL, pipeline-jerky.com. We are selling like crazy. We've got merchandise boxes. We've got boxes with shirts, hats, all sorts of fun stuff. They make a great gift. They've got hats in like the jerky, 2 different flavors, the peppercorn jerky as well as the honey barbecue. Pork jerky, both fantastic flavors. They directly support the offensive line. You can see the guys in the picture. Some of the guys are on the team. Some have transferred. We're working through that. But then also go to huskguysstore.com. So this hat that I've got on is selling like absolute crazy. We just got a new shipment in this week. We've got like 30 left of them, but we've got them in gift boxes in the Ultimate Husker Dad Cave crate, the Husker Throwback Time Machine gift, the Herbie Husker Fanatic box, and the Herbie Husker Golf Pack. All of these were just built in an effort of saying like, hey, we've got a big Nebraska following, and Nebraska fans are hard to shop for. This is a great gift for someone who loves Nebraska football, particularly those who were born in the 90s. But there's also stuff for Husker fans who are golfers, Husker fans who've got kids, Husker fans who are just looking for fun gifts to give. So go to huskguysstore.com. We got cool hats, we got cool shirts, we got great gear. So make sure you check that stuff out. We got about 4 or 5 days left before we can ship in time for Christmas. So make sure you get in there at huskguysstore.com. And finally, Underdog Fantasy, use promo code HuskGuys for a 50% deposit match up to $1,000. Having a ton of fun with it. Go higher or lower on all of the different Husker player stats. So Rayola's number of touchdowns he's going to score against Boston College in the bowl game will be up there, as well as the number of touchdowns, running back touchdowns for any players that may or may not be on our team. Higher and lowers, lots of good stuff. But enter promo code HuskGuys It's a great platform. Download the app and make sure you get on there, and you get 50% deposit match. So check that out. And now, okay, so here's where I want to take this before we jump into some stuff. Get your rapid reaction to a lot of different fun breaking news from this week. Okay. So Iowa game ends. Rock bottom. Rock bottom.
Never watching again.
Punch in your face again. Like hours later, Tony White's gone.
Jesus.
How do you feel about that? What's your rapid reaction to Tony White? Just, I'm gone.
He was overrated anyways. Never liked him.
Great. We didn't need him.
We don't even need him. No. Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know. His stay was bittersweet because you kind of knew after year one, like there were whispers that he was going to UCLA last year, and
and Fresno State, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was surprising that we even were able to keep him. Like he had just such a good year. I would actually say that this year was not as impressive as last year. I mean, last year he was taking over a broken defense. This year he was trying to do more of the same, and we replicated a little bit of it. We still finished top 20 in scoring defense. I mean, he did what we needed him to do. This year was not the defense's fault, other than a few occasional drives. It stinks to lose him. And it seems that a lot of the players really liked him because the onslaught of transfer portal departures, the second that he left, was it's still going. It's still going. But before this year, when we hired John Butler, I just felt like this is the contingency plan, and I think we even said it on this podcast. It's like kind of a reason a guy from the NFL, John Butler, who wanted to be a defensive coordinator, would come to Nebraska of all places just randomly. I think the plan all along was, if Tony's headed out, we need somebody who's going to take over and keep some continuity, and Butler's the guy.
Yeah, and so one of the first comments popping up here is my next question that I had for you is, did you have a reaction to? I was surprised he took a quote unquote lateral move. I think it's a lateral move.
That's
maybe
true.
Down. They're 2-10. They're not good. They were 13-0 2 years ago. It's Florida State. Yeah. It's warmer. It's easier to recruit. Is it a better program? I don't know. Is it a better job? I don't know. What like the head coach thing made sense. Like, yeah, the guy wants to be a head coach. Surprising that he went to be another D coordinator.
Yeah, I'm not totally buying the family excuse. I guess I just don't.
He's about to go to UCLA.
Get it right. Yeah, those are not in the area. I don't even actually know that his family's from Tallahassee. Florida's a big state.
He's a California guy.
Regardless. Yeah, I was and I wasn't. I mean, it's just a matter of like, in the end, it's going to probably come down to money and
we pay him 1.6 though.
There's some that are also thinking like, if he's a head coach in waiting, like the jump from Florida State and stuff, and showing that he can do it at two places. I don't know. I'm coming up with different reasons.
Yeah, I mean, so here's my
final thought though, is that some of this turnover and some of this change and some of the stuff we're seeing, I do wonder a little bit about the pressure on Rule, and then like if he's kind of like a little almost rattled in like keeping everybody together, and then B is like Dana Holgerson coming in and maybe rattling some cages there too. Who knows? There might be a little bit of like animosity between guys that are just trying to come in and shake things up and change everything around. And for a former head coach like Holgerson, like that might be tough for some of these other coaches to tolerate.
Yeah, I think I got a couple different spin zones on the whole thing. That on the one hand, he was a rental from the beginning, which I think is like, I don't know. The whole thing was a little bit, as you look at it, kind of bizarre, where like he came in and is instantly like, okay, this guy's gonna be head coach. So the whole thing was a little like,
I think we knew it was gonna happen
within months. Like within like by October, we're like, oh, this defense is good. He's probably gonna be a head coach.
Yeah,
which is a weird way to build a program for Rule in the beginning.
And re-signing him last year was a surprise.
Was a miracle. because he should have got the UCLA job. I don't know why he didn't. That's like an interesting question why he didn't get that or didn't get the Fresno State job. But yeah, that stuff was interesting. My spin zone of how I'm like rationalizing and I'm like the what's it like the therapy level of like depression in your brain to like rationalize it is so like 56-7 against Indiana was his fault. And then
get him out.
all of the
get him out of here.
All of the bad drives at the end of games where we couldn't stop them. So like UCLA's game-winning touchdown drive, USC's game-winning touchdown drive, Ohio State's game-winning touchdown drive. All those are his fault. The good series, all of the good plays, and all of the really good shutout games, like the games where we shut out Colorado, the game where we shut out that Purdue, like all the half shutouts we did were Butler's.
Nice.
How's that?
That works. Tony. Yeah.
It wasn't him.
You can take your stupid 3-3-5 and get out of here.
Yeah, that's my complete like rationalization through the whole thing. I obviously love Tony. I thought he was great. I'm gonna miss him. It's weird. I thought the whole thing was weird. That was a major. Illinois scored in the same play 3 times by Andrew. I mean, there's plenty. I thought this year was weird. I would agree. Like there was. I mean, the fact that the defense fell apart on game-losing drives multiple times, the meltdown against Indiana, like the inability to make a big stop, like in important situations. There's definitely something a little bit off to the point that he wasn't as explosive as he was like year one. Anyway, that's Tony. But Tony shifts into topic 2, and this is one we'll go from topic 2, and this will also be like the topic we finish with. The bowl game was announced next.
Yes.
Okay. And I was thinking about how to phrase this to our fans because this is probably a brand new segment for those who are listening. We got about 558 folks listening.
Yeah.
But for those who've been listening for a long time, you probably don't know this. But Andrew and I are Boston College alums, which is a weird dynamic.
There's a bomb.
For us. We were born and raised
in Omaha. We grew up in Omaha.
Born and raised Nebraska football fans, diehard Nebraska football fans, children in the 90s, built an entire business around Nebraska football. It's all we care about. It's the only thing I think about is helping Nebraska football. But we did happen to go to Boston College for school. But I was thinking about the spin zone of how we can help fans here is there is nobody here that knows more about Boston College in Nebraska than us.
I mean, Rule should be calling us.
Because I've watched more Boston College football than anybody in Nebraska. I would argue that. What was your reaction to pinstripe Boston College?
I mean, I like extreme disappointment just because of the opponent, like, not mattering where it is. Like, we grew up children of the 90s. We grew up like, going to every single home game. Like Nebraska football is blood. It is our family. It's several generations worth, all of that. And I was so stoked to finally get back to a bowl game. I mean, first time since 2016, first time that our children, and we've had children for many years now, seeing a bowl game.
I have an 8-year-old.
It's against, and how do you explain to your kids it's against our college, which we also cheer for, but not in this game, but maybe a little bit, but not a lot bit. And BC is going for, we're going for our first 8-win season since 2009. Nebraska's in the first bowl game since 2016. Why do these two teams have to meet? It is the worst. It's like the kings of football futility here, but
it is as my son Jack said, he asked me, is it for the national championship? Like, no, it's not, buddy. This is for the pinstripe. This is for the pinstripe bowl.
It's like our family's national championship, and no one else.
It's for the pinstripe. It's the pinstripe bowl in New York. It's going to be 7 degrees and freezing cold and snowing, and it's on the Tuesday at 28th. But hey, we're playing.
That I have gotten because I was literally in our class, I was one of like 5 kids to go to Boston College that were from the state of Nebraska. Like nobody knew anything about Nebraska. Anything. Brought them a lot of info. The amount of text that holy cow.
But we got a lot of good stuff. We'll cover that right in a second because I wanted to make sure we jump into other key components of. So we go from Tony White, bam, punch in the face. What is going on? To a bowl game. So you're down. You're like, Iowa is terrible, right? So we got Iowa lost another. I mean, just to cover it for 11 seconds is we lost again on the last play again, which we do every single time because we're just cursed. Good news is next year we're not going to be cursed, so we just got to flush the whole thing out. So we go from horrible Iowa to Tony White, which is another horrible thing. Terrence Knighton gone, everybody gone.
Terrence Knighton, that one.
Terrence Knighton hurt. So then you're up. Bowl game is exciting. Flights booked, New York. Yay, this is exciting. And then we go back to bad news of just an absolute exodus out of the program.
And it's stimulated by those you have mentioned. I mean, Tony White is bringing people with him. Terrence Knighton is apparently a huge loss. Our entire defensive line is who are we trotting out there in the bowl game?
I mean, who's going to play in the bowl game?
Nash and blank.
For those not reading the slides we've got pulled up, Tony White left. Emmett Johnson will come back to him. He left and came back. Danny Kalen is transferring. Malachi Coleman, who we know is gone. Jamari Butler has entered the portal. Mackay gone. Gabe Irvin entered the portal. Vincent Jackson, Stephen Thompson, Prince Will, James Williams, Keona Davis, Dwight Boodle, Davon Hall. We literally can't update this list fast enough because more people are entering every day. I don't know how we are going to field the team for the bowl game. That should be incredibly interesting. But so here's like the interesting. I was thinking about this too. So I was thinking about if you just read the newspaper, or if you just get your news like Sunday newspaper or something.
Yeah.
Your ability to I don't know. I feel like processing would be like, oh, there's a couple guys like in transfer portal. Yeah. When you're like in it, the way that we are. I mean, it's like you're getting hit by a sledgehammer like every day, hourly, more and more news.
And then
then the roller coaster of emotion of Emmett Johnson, gone. He was gone for like 48 hours. It was the longest 48 hours of the season.
That was terrible. That was a rough
and then he comes back and he puts up a video that he's back, like Jordan's back. He put up this long, elaborate video about how he's back. He was gone 48 hours. That was a long 48 hours.
He spent 2 days just making that video.
So now, because of him and because Davis is back as well, both these guys were in the portal for basically not even a full work day.
Yeah, it feels like we're winning.
Then you're like, oh, I think we just got 2 guys from the portal.
They're our own players.
Our own players. We're pulling our own players back out of the portal, and I think I think they're just renegotiating their NIL. Isn't that what it's got to be?
Yeah.
It's they go in there and they're
well, for it to happen so fast too, right? Because I mean, they're definitely going to be hearing from other teams, and Emmett and I mean, both of them would go to some big schools. There's no doubt about it. And I just think that that's their leverage. And it might be kind of the only leverage that some of these guys have is, I'm going to the portal. What are you going to give me? And it's just so
call your bluff.
But I think annoying. It's ridiculous. But.
Yeah. Well, I think that those are the 2. It's interesting because of that whole list, Emmett and then Davis were the 2 that had the biggest negative reaction of Emmett Johnson was so confusing because he's a starting running back in the Big Ten and became a starter for Dana, and Dana turned him into a great player in the last 2 days and really gave him the ball and really leaned in on him. So that was a weird where you're like, where are you going to go? What are you doing? You're going to, or do you not want to be a starting running back in the Big Ten?
Yeah. Well, and the ones I mean, this list isn't even exhaustive anymore. We also have to add Borkircher, and then here's a random funny aside. If you look on 247, counting against our transfer numbers, Eric Gilbert is considered a transfer from Nebraska right now.
Well, did you see there's 4
transferring from a penitentiary somewhere, and he's apparently considered a Nebraska transfer. He's
That's what they
leaving Georgia State Penitentiary. Eric Gilbert is transferred to Florida International. It's why does that count against us?
They put up a graphic for him yesterday that was 5-star Eric Gilbert transfers from Nebraska. It's you can't put that up there. That's not true. He's not he hasn't been our team in 18 months.
He did not have a great season this year.
5-star. Sure. Nebraska loses another 5-star. That's
another one.
True.
Can't hold on to this. Just can't keep him.
That's a weird one. But I guess I don't. I mean, I don't know how many of these guys are.
Well, yeah. What I was gonna get into the ones that bother me the most, actually, because I definitely understand, like, if it's not for you, if this new changing staff is not for you, if you're not gonna play or whatever, and it's just sure, maybe take a chance elsewhere. The ones that are bothersome are the double transfers. So like Jacob Hood came from Georgia. He didn't get on the field much. It's hard to blame him, but it is annoying that he came here, took whatever money, and now he's leaving without really doing a whole lot of anything. And then number two, it's the kids that were like kind of discovered and developed here, and then just kind of use this as a launching pad. And James Williams is like, that is the example right there. Now, granted, he did like come out and say that Terrence Knighton was like a father figure to him, and so now he's committing to Florida State to follow him. Okay, that's fair. He's awesome, but like he was discovered at like a Friday Night Lights camp. He was not going to play Division I football, and he broke onto the scene.
I know.
And we essentially made him, or he made himself here. It's guys like that. I mean, Emmett Johnson would have been one of them. I mean, he's a former 3-star player and stuff too, but I'm very glad that he's coming back. And then you get the local guys too. Like that hurts me just as a native Nebraskan. Mal Coleman, Danny Kalen, Isaiah McMorris, Davon Hall, all leaving. Davon Hall, McMorris, and Danny Kalen all came from Bellevue West here together. None of them played a down.
I know.
And they are now all leaving. And it's like, it feels like Floribraska, except it's, or Calabraska, if you remember the Calabraska era.
Except for it's Nebraska.
Except for it's Nebraska. So it's just Nebraska. So it's just really.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's, if you want to get into the true, like, the macro, what a bummer it all is from a college football standpoint of it is this stuff, like it is what it is. You got to adapt or die. You got to play the NIL game. You got to play this whole transfer portal game. And it's, the transfer portal giveth, the transfer portal taketh away. But like the bummer part is exactly what you're saying is, especially the way that we love watching the game is you start following the kid when he's 16. He's a superstar who's broken onto the scene in your local high school at Bellevue West. You follow him. He commits at 17. He starts to really develop. You watch him as a freshman. He redshirts. Sophomore year, he's maybe a little bit better. Junior year, he gets a little bit better. And senior year, then he becomes a star. That's a 6-year time frame that you get to follow a kid. Sure. And now it's like everybody's kind of a rental. It's a weird they're all my kids transferred and they never played. They didn't they would have played next year. Yeah. You would think, right? And they're all just going to leave. And so then we're going to bring in a bunch of transfers from Wake Forest and Wyoming and Texas and it's a weird, every kid's a rental now. So you do way less with their story, especially if you're losing kids like this and you can't become as emotionally attached to the players. And I think if you listen to some of the chatter, people are like, that's what's losing Nebraska. It's what's losing college football fans in general is every kid's a rental.
I mean, there's a little bit of it. It's like, I mean, somebody, who was it? Like Kevin Schutz, I think on Twitter, he's like, it is ridiculous that Raiola had to come out and say, I'm coming back. Like no one.
Well, they did. I mean,
that just means like he's hearing from other schools. He's here, like he's getting, all these and there's fans, there's all these rumors. Like people are like, who's going to Miami? And like no one had any verification that was the case. Nothing at all. And then all of a sudden he comes out with a post that's saying, I'm back. And we're like, God, it used to just kind of be like, we assumed that you were coming back because you're a true freshman.
Well, right. You're a true freshman.
It's amazing you have to even make these re-announcements.
Yeah, that one was I don't know. It's tough to say on that one, like how much is, are you talking to Miami or did literally 24/7 or did they just make that up? Are they truly just making things up? Or were you talking to Miami and are you actually geez Louise, you just got here? But yeah, it's it's a crazy world. It's what's the, they just seem I don't know. I just don't like the transfer. I don't like the, inconsistency of it. It's just a big bummer.
Yeah. The future is crazy. I mean, it really is. It's going to be contracted work, and I think that one of my only, like, the more I've thought about it, I think one of the only things that can save a team like Nebraska that is hoping to retain and develop talent is if you can get more contractual relationships with these players. Like, if you stay for 3 years, you get this.
Right.
Like, your contract is contingent on this. That, and then the double transfer and triple transfer. My God, Chubba Purdy has been playing in every region of America.
Well, there's 4 of them now. There's AJ Brown, or AJ, what the heck is his last name? I just had it pulled up. AJ down in Miami.
Oh God, yeah.
AJ Allen. Is that his name?
Yeah.
And then Savion Morrison is transferring from Kansas after he was a Nebraska kid, transferred to Kansas.
Yeah.
All right, so here's now more rapid fire news. All right, so we got transfer portal stuff that's still coming.
Yes.
And now I just thought of this one that I don't even have on our list, but we got it. Yeah. We have so much to get to. The prince who was promised to us.
God. Oh my God.
The prince who was promised to us.
Jesus.
Who was not actually the prince for us.
Not at all.
He's now the prince who has been promised again back to Central Florida. Scott Frost is back at Central Florida.
I mean,
this has all happened in the last 5 days.
How is that? How did that even happen?
Have you seen any coverage? They love him.
Of course they love him. He went 13-0.
So
God,
he is completely
close.
about to resurrect his career.
Close with him. All he did here was slide down railings and apparently hit on co-eds at local bars, and then he left with a lot of our money. And it was so disappointing. God, we were all rooting for him so hard. And the problem is he's probably going to go kill it at UCF.
Yes. He's going to go to the playoff, 100%.
Like, I need some validation. Like, I need him to go to UCF and just suck.
Yeah.
But that is very vain of me. I do want him to succeed. It's just, although they have switched conferences, they are in a little bit more of a competitive environment. The Big 12 stinks.
Barely.
The Big 12 stinks. I mean, it is definitely the worst power conference. But God, good for Scott. He's falling on his feet somehow.
Amazing. And he's rich. Now he's rich, and
he's richer.
Way richer. He's $50 million richer. But he also seems like, I watched his press conference. He seems a lot more relaxed and chill. Like it just was too much for him. The whole thing was too much. It was too emotional. He wasn't good at it. He wasn't successful.
Yeah.
It wasn't working.
There's shine when the pressure's off, maybe.
There's no pressure down there. He has recruits everywhere. He doesn't have to recruit. He can drink margaritas in the pool, and the players will still show up.
Drink at practice.
I think he's drinking practice. He can do whatever he wants. Nobody pays attention until they get to the Peach Bowl. That's all that matters. That was another crazy one. So we got Tony White. We got
that was a big
in the last 7 days. We got Tony White. Yep. We got 700 players in the transfer portal. We don't know if we can play a bowl game. We're playing against our alma mater. We got our prince who was promised has left and has gone to UCF. And then it started raining coaches. It just absolutely raining coaches.
Yep.
So it just which I always wonder. Let me pull these guys up. Pete Thamel started tweeting these things. I don't really know how this stuff works, but I always wonder how does Pete Thamel get this news before Sean Callahan? I don't know.
Does he just know?
I don't know. Sipple and McEwen are sitting in their office. How can they ask Rule and be like, "Hey, who'd you hire?" Can't he just tell him, as opposed to Thamel coming out of the guy's sitting in New York, oh, breaking news. Why does he know? I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know who's texting him. They're like, I can't wait to text Pete about this.
I can't wait to text Pete Thamel. Why are you texting? Why aren't we have local beat writers? Why don't you ask? Why doesn't Mitch Sherman break it?
He knows everything.
All right, so Butler's DC. What do you think of that?
Butler, yeah, we saw that coming, I think. My only downside in the portal era, it was just that when you internally hire, you don't get to bring those exciting players with you. Florida State getting Tony White, he's going to bring James Williams. He might bring Shamari Butler. He might bring a couple other guys. That's an immediate boost to their defense.
Right.
John Butler does not have that. He's an internal hire. I actually have no idea how good of a recruiter he really is. I know that he's a pretty good coach. I know that our secondary kind of stunk this year, but maybe he's a better defensive coordinator, and it's a fine hire. I think it's a trustworthy hire. I think it's a hope for some continuity there, that you just don't have to like completely overhaul the defense again and anything like that.
Yeah, I mean the pros are clearly Rule trusts him. Cruel's worked with him before. He came in clearly. It was like writing on the wall from day one was, why would he leave the NFL if he wasn't like in line to become the defensive coordinator? So pros there. He's got NFL experience, which I think is extremely important in this modern game of NIL, to be able to speak this language, to be able to speak contracts, to be able to treat kids like professionals. They're professionals now. They're no longer kids. They're all professionals. And so I think that language probably helps. Con side to me is always even entities. I like, I prefer guys who've been like a D coordinator for 10 years in the college level. Like that always like helps me ease my mind. And he hasn't done it since 2014 in Penn State. I think it was the last time he was a D coordinator. So it's a little bit of a, kind of a risky hire, and it's just hard. The whole Rule thing is a little bit tricky because you're like, he's in year 2 and he's already lost his offensive coordinator and his defensive coordinator and his defensive backs coach and a bunch of other guys he's had to like fire already in like 2 years. Like he was kind of supposed to be the coach of stability, and feels like we're starting over on offense and defense in a lot of ways, which is kind of not great.
Yeah, it is. That is a good point. I mean, it's a lot of turnover, and like a lot of them were his guys.
He handpicked.
I mean, you now have a new secondary coach. We actually, not even on this list that we have here, is we might have a new outside linebacker coach, Philip Sampson, coming from Florida too. Or Florida State, I think. Anyway, we've got Terry Braden come in, so that's a new D-line coach. So so that's all 3 levels of the defense. You have a D-line, another linebackers coach, and then a new secondary coach was John Butler, and then now presumably somebody else is going to take the reins there. And then on offense, still the same O-line coach, Rayola, holding it down. Love that.
Yeah.
Receivers, I'm actually pretty excited about the Kentucky coach. What is his name? Dave something.
Not gonna.
But he's got a couple of players that he might bring with him, and that's, again, you hate to say it, but like some of the advantage of these guys is like, it's not why you hire them. It's absolutely not. But the fact that 2 of the top 10 players in the transfer portal right now are both Kentucky wide receivers that Nebraska could very well land, like that's a huge advantage of having that guy. It's short-sighted. It shouldn't be that way, but that's just the reality, is that like if you get these guys for 2-3 years, which or 1-2 years even, it's a huge difference maker for the program too. Just a nice little boost. And then Phil Snell, you get a new associate head coach. What do you think an associate head coach is? What's going on? What is that?
I would have preferred
head coach, or is he
new?
He's just associated with
him. Is he a coach in waiting? Is he like chief of staff? Like, is he like? I would have preferred what Belichick just did, of like make him the general manager, or who, like whatever he does, like make him.
Yeah. It's really interesting.
Make him like the general manager of NIL or something, but like associate head coach, kind of weird. It's like, Rule, you make $7 million. Why aren't you the head coach?
He's like a head coach, but he's just associated with one.
But he's so he has Rule's defensive coordinator at Temple. He was the defensive coordinator for the Panthers. He's clearly a defensive guy. Like the hope is that Rule is able to maintain culture and be the CEO of his company, and like he's able to guide it through and just replace like the executive. We'll see if that holds true. That's basically what Saban has done for the last 15 years. Not saying Rule is anywhere close to like the Saban level, but Saban will place his offensive coordinator basically every single year. He's had Sarkisian in there. He's had Lane Kiffin in there. He's had Bill O'Brien in there. But I don't know. It's just weird that we're like entering year 3 and it's like, this is supposed to be the big growth year. And we're like, oh yeah, we're going to start an entirely new offense and defense and defensive line and linebacker and secondary and also wide receivers.
I mean, new coordinators both sides is crazy, and then
and all new players.
What's like kind of crazy is of all of these people, I think Ed Foley was the one that everyone was calling for his head.
No, he's still there.
I mean, what are we doing there?
He's still there. He's hanging. He's hanging. Guy's like unfireable.
God bless.
So he's hanging. There. We got some action there. So to recap, we got lost Iowa. Tony White's out. Boston College bowl game is great news for us. Followed by 20 transfer portal guys. Followed by all of our coaches leaving. Followed by a ton of new coaches coming in. Followed by Scott Frost, the prince who was promised, leaving Nebraska, hanging out on the beach for a while, going back to his alma mater, or not alma mater. He's an alma mater here. Going back to the place he won a national championship at. He's gone. New guys are coming in. We've got associate head coaches. We've got D-line coaches, defensive coordinators. Somehow we got to play a bowl game in all this mayhem. But then also breaking news on the transfer side, you just said a bunch of these guys are already landing.
A couple of them.
What did you say? James Williams is officially going to
James Williams
Florida State.
His crystal ball, at least 100% of his predictions are to Florida State, and then Prince Will, his prediction is to Ole Miss, where his brother actually transferred from Florida to go to Ole Miss. So now they've got two Uman down there in patrolling the Grove. So
they're showing Jamari Butler is 50% Florida State and LSU.
Again, like I can't emphasize enough the whole like Terry Braden is coming in from the Chiefs, which was a huge hire, by the way. I think a great hire. He's been working with guys like Chris Jones the last couple of years. Comes in from the Chiefs as our new D-line coach, and he has to replace Prince Will, James Williams, Keona Davis, Vincent Jackson.
No, Davis is back. Davis is back.
Who?
Davis is back.
Keona Davis is back. Sorry, I'm just Davis is back. Vincent Jackson, Brody Tagaloa, Jamari Butler, Kai Wallen, and Ty and Nash.
Yeah, I think they said like
massive overhaul on the D line.
I think they said we almost will not have a player come back with a tackle, because we're going to lose.
It's 8 players from a D line that does a 3-3-5.
Yeah, not ideal.
So
yeah, I mean we're gonna start from scratch. It's gonna be brutal.
3 linebackers. Stephon Thompson with the old double transfer comes from Syracuse. He's out. Micah Bayer, that one hurt. He's a grad transfer as well. He's out. We also lost a player named Noah Bustard, which I have never heard of, but that's fine. We lose more Noah Bustards. We need to lose less Micah Bayers and more Noah Bustards.
We've had a lot of guys put up this super emotional post that's like, God bless me, I'd like to thank everybody for my time. I was like, who is that? I don't even know who that person is. But thanks for they put Psalms 247, what? Who? I don't even know your name. Why are you putting up a post? People are like, good luck. Who is that? That guy doesn't even play. All right, rapid fire through. Okay, let's talk a little bit of BC. I know we got to get you out of here. Let's talk a little bit of BC. Like I said, nobody knows more about BC than us. So quick education tour for folks on the Eagles. So here is, I don't know which slide is the best one to focus on, but the high level, the way the season went is to watch every single game. The way that BC's season has gone.
That's crazy.
They won, beating Florida State in the first game. I was convinced that Boston College was going to win the national championship because I was like, this team.
Bill O'Brien.
This
game
team,
Game
one beats the Jesus out of Florida State in game 1. And Florida State was preseason top 5 for those that don't remember. So I was like, oh my gosh, we were winning 28-10, ended up winning 28-13. Huge win, ran all over them, completely dominated Florida State. I was like, wow, this team is back. So they started 4-1 and then also had a close loss to Missouri. So Missouri, we took wire to wire. It was 21-21 late in the fourth. Missouri finally pulled away. So that's a top 5 win over Florida State.
Missouri was number 6 at the time.
And Missouri was number 6 at the time.
Florida State was our first top 10 road win since 2002.
In ages. So you start 4-1, think things are pretty good. Very, very similar trajectory to Nebraska season. You start 4-1 with a loss to a top 10 team, a win over a top 5 team, and then very Nebraska-esque rip off 3 straight losses: a loss to Virginia, a loss to a massacre at the hands of Virginia Tech, and a very bad loss to a Louisville team. It's pretty good. But then Boston College was able to flip it, beat Syracuse, a very close loss to a playoff-bound SMU, and then a rout of North Carolina and a rout over Pittsburgh. So Boston College is playing good football with the big variable as starting quarterback Tommy Castellanos transferred late in the season because he got benched for the backup Grayson James, who will now start in the bowl game. Tommy Castellanos is going to Florida State to play with Tony White, which is freaking insane because all of these worlds are somehow coming together, and somehow Tommy Castellanos is going to be on the same team as Jamari Butler and James Williams.
We don't deserve this.
How incestuous is this entire world?
Why is this happening to us?
It's all coming together like that. But the Eags, very like a ground and pound Bill O'Brien led team. It's his first year. He's definitely like a control the line of scrimmage type guy. He had a mobile quarterback. Grayson James is decently mobile, not quite as mobile as Tommy Castellanos. But it's a good team. Well coached, fundamentally sound, very prone for blowups.
I mean, I would say, like, just, from watching both Nebraska and BC all year, BC is just better at exploiting weaknesses. And probably like the best example was against Syracuse. We absolutely demolished them on the ground, ran for, I think, over 300. Kai Robichaux ran for almost 200 yards. Our quarterback, who was a new starter, Grayson James at the time, he started the last 4 games. He only threw for 51 yards. And they just ran the ball on Syracuse. Like, he's Bill O'Brien historically likes to run NFL pro style offenses and stuff, but he's very much like when it's time to make an NFL decision, he makes an NFL decision. Like, he's not really he's not going to be like your Dan Lanning type where he's going for 4th down conversions on his own 25-yard line and 30-yard. He's not going to do things like that. He's not a huge gambler, but very good at exploiting weaknesses. And then over the last 4 games, you saw BC lose to, I got to clarify who's us in this, my alma mater or the listeners of this podcast. So winning 3 of the last 4 games. Pittsburgh was a team that had started out 7-0. They weren't too bad. North Carolina, they were kind of a team that had collapsed, but beat them 41-21. And then he also had he had Donovan Ezaraku, probably one of the better pass rushers I've maybe ever seen. 13.5 sacks I think it was 16.5 actually.
Yeah, no, it's 16.5. He's gonna be a problem.
16.5 was 13 more sacks than the next closest player on the defense. Yeah. 13 more sacks. The next closest was 3.5. So, and he ended up being the ACC Defensive Player of the Year. So again, very good at just exploiting weaknesses and taking his best players and putting them in space. Lewis Bond was was BC's best receiver. He had 60 receptions on the year. I think the next closest was in the 20s. Yeah, Kamari Morales. And that was that was the tight end Kamari Morales. So very good at getting the right players the ball. Very good at getting at letting his defenders just get after him. Ezaraku is going to be an absolute force. I don't know who on Nebraska's offensive line is going to be blocking Ezaraku, and I don't know who is going to be able to stop the passing game. But a very balanced offense, and I would say overall,
it's going to be so bizarre watching this. Just watching him knock Rayl's head off will be just terrifying. Please gently set him on the ground, please don't hurt him.
Oh my God, seriously. And he's such an easy player to cheer for. He's just so well spoken, motivated, has been at BC forever, and is finally taking his moment in the sun. And I think he's going to use his last game to show NFL scouts this is what's up.
Yeah,
he could be a first rounder.
I can't believe Nebraska lost 5 of their last 6 games. It's so depressing seeing this.
5 of the last 6. BC's 3 of the last 4 wins. So you got one team that's rolling and one team that's
really struggling.
Has been sliding a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. The line is BC.
No.
Or Nebraska favored by 2.5 with an over under 45. Yep. I think that goes way over, mainly because we do not have a defensive coordinator and we have 40 players in the transfer portal. So that's where every one of these bowl games is like a complete mess because all these players, there's 1,500 players in the transfer portal and we haven't played a bowl game yet. So you have no idea who's going to show up. You have no idea who's going to show up, who's going to play on, and losing one player, having one player out with an injury dramatically affects the impact of a game, let alone Jamari Butler and James Williams both just being down in Tallahassee while we're trying to win a bowl game. What are we doing?
Yeah, it is insane. I mean, and it's so hard to fully commit to, I mean, I think Nebraska fans need to use their New York base and we need to show out. I think Husker fans will. It's going to be freezing. It's going to be 30-degree New York day. There's tons to do there. There's a lot of stuff going on in New York. Just bite the bullet, get there, show your support, and be loud because BC's does have a good new Northeastern fan base and stuff out there. I know it wasn't everybody's ideal bowl game, but you gotta go. You gotta be there. It's our first time in a decade. Take advantage. Quit being babies about it and acting like we can be all picky. That is so ridiculous that people are well, I was gonna go if it was in Detroit, but not if it's. And it's no, you weren't. Quit being a baby.
I mean, it is. It is
go. Commit.
It's definitely disappointing. It's not Nashville. Nashville would have been fun. Charlotte would have been awesome. Phoenix would have been fun. Orlando, any of these, but you got to win more games. If you don't win more games, you play on a baseball field. That's just how it works.
If you don't play on a baseball field, and
if you don't want to play in a baseball field in 10-degree weather in the snow, then win more games. That's just how it works. You got to win more games. Let's cover quickly 2 more topics before we jump out of here.
Signing day.
Signing day. When is signing day?
We had happened.
Jesus, that's added to the list of things. That was right before everything.
December 4th.
Yeah, that was fun.
Another big one. Yeah.
So signing day, I mean, I wanted to cover this, which I thought was just interesting conversation fodder there was for those now looking at it, there was I don't even know what you'd call this, some kind of a repository that at least did their best attempt at aggregating the total amount of collective funding as well as the total amount of ticket sales and total amount of revenue for each of the programs in the Power 5 program. I thought it was very interesting. Everybody's oh man, their methodology is not accurate. It's not accurate. Blah, 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 all this stuff. I think it's actually directionally close to something. Yeah. And the thing that is immediately comes out of it that's concerning is I think it is directionally close. They've got Nebraska basically as the 30th most collective funding at $8 million. I think that's pretty close to accurate. I know Rayola's got a big package. Most of the other players don't really. And the concerning thing is maybe it's not 8, maybe it's 10, maybe it's 11, maybe it's 12. The concerning part to me there is it's a factor of 2 away from the big guys.
Oh my God. It's like you're playing a different sport.
Texas at 22 million, Ohio State at 20, LSU at 20, Georgia at 18, Texas A&M at 17. I mean, with twice the amount of funding to get players, you are going to have twice as good a players. It is, if not 3, 4, or 5 times as better. Right? And if we've learned nothing else over the last 20 years of football, is the teams with the most 5 stars win. It happens almost every time. There's a direct correlation between recruiting rankings and those teams that are playing in the top 10. The rare exceptions are the Indianas, the JMUs, the SMUs of the world. Majority of it: Texas, Ohio State, LSU, Georgia, Texas A&M, Michigan, Alabama, Florida, Clemson, Oklahoma, Penn State. Those are your top 10 teams.
Yeah, you knew about them. It makes perfect sense, and it's the unfortunate way of the world. Again, one of my only hopes, I guess, for the future of Husker football and the future of college football as a whole is just that, how do we get these insane bonkers boosters and the world's richest man, buying
quarterbacks.
Buying quarterbacks for Michigan and whatever. It's just how do we take that out and just make it a little bit more of a level, like, hey, you have X amount to spend, and that right now, the sad reality is that while Nebraska started ahead, I mean, we were in a good spot. Like initially, we were, in that top 20. We had like, open doors in our back pocket and stuff with former Nebraska players starting that. We had a good amount of funding. We had a good direction and stuff. And then
Pipeline Jerky.
Pipeline Jerky has been started and founded by some extreme loyalists that are talking to you right now. But this is just the way that college football is going, is like the top dollar. A lot of these guys are just shopping around for schools to give them a deal, and it's hard to blame them. It really is. Like, God, if I was in college and someone said, I'll give you 50,000 to go to this school, or I'll give you 75 to go to this school, you just take the 75. You don't really I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just a dumb 18-year-old. Like, I don't think about everything. It's just like, hey, that's 25,000 more dollars I wouldn't have, and I'm really poor, so I'm going to take that.
Well, I think that, especially when the number doubles, or it's like, I mean, you hear a lot of these coaches, like Dillingham is talking about it, where he's like,
a random 3-star safety is going to take.
Yeah, but like Dillingham saying, like, hey, these guys, we're paying a guy 100,000, and a school comes in and offers 200,000. 100,000 is an extra 100,000 is a lot of money to an 18-year-old. Like 25,000, maybe you don't make that jump, but if schools are coming in offering $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, it's hard to turn that down.
It's hard to be a development program at all. Like that side is what I really hope college football doesn't get completely away from. We are bringing in, like, with this money, one way or another, we are bringing in a top 20 recruiting class, and that should be exciting. My fear is that, so Dawson Merritt comes back to us. He could be an absolute star, but how do you keep him on campus?
Yeah.
Cortez Mills ends up committing to us instead of Oklahoma. That's a huge recruiting win. 4-star wide receiver, Malcolm Simpson, 4-star D lineman, Christian Jones, 4-star in your own backyard. But this is the the Mal Coleman story all over again. Like, Mal Coleman, a top 150 player in the country from Lincoln, is now transferring.
Yeah.
And so
I think that the crazy thing too is how
program.
Well, the how fast the whole thing is accelerating is unbelievable, in the sense that every year the number is like 10xing, where, I think allegedly the Rail is signed for like $1 million a year, allegedly, right? Like $1 million a year, $3 million a year, something like that. The kid from Michigan just signed for 12.
I mean,
so like, if you're Raiola, are you like, wait a second, why did I only sign for $1 million? But then 2 years ago, like I remember a kid went for $250,000 and people lost their minds. So like $250,000 for a college kid. What are you talking about? So $250,000 turned into $1 million, which is turned into 12 in 48 months. 24. Yeah, 24 months.
And like the other part of it is like, it really kills some of your grassroots vibe. Like some of it is like, hey, like if a couple of us chip in our our proceeds from selling a bison last week, like maybe we can buy a nothing. You can't buy anything.
It's $20 million. $20 million.
Yeah, like $500 is nothing. It's like, and so it kills a little bit of that. Like, I want to make a little bit of a difference, but it takes everybody. But it also just takes a couple guys.
It takes one guy.
It takes Phil Knight.
It takes Phil Knight. It takes Larry Ellison. Tennessee's got the what's his name? The owner of the Browns. The Haslams are bankrolling Tennessee's entire roster. Like, it's.
And you look at how much these guys are working with, and it's bananas.
Anyway,
I mean, so my hope for Nebraska is that, like, we have a development coach. We have Rule, who prides himself in taking 3 stars and sending them to the NFL. And there are plenty of them on campus. And we've got the recruiting classes. We've got the talent. And now we have all these new coaches. Like, my prayers are that it finally starts to gel together, and that all of these coaches are maybe actually a little bit of an upgrade. Don't know if that's the case.
Here's our last topic. You ready for this?
Maybe.
Schedule release day.
12-0. Done. Next.
I mean, it's December. It usually takes me a while to talk myself into this stuff. But look at this schedule.
It's a beauty.
I mean,
sets up nice.
Obviously, the issue is we don't historically beat any of these teams. But what if we do start beating them? Have you thought about that? What if I know we don't normally ever beat Minnesota or Michigan or USC or UCLA or Penn State or Iowa. But what if this year we do?
Put it on paper. On paper. That's what
Cincinnati, August 30th for Cincinnati is likely moving to Kansas City. So that's basically a de facto home game. Okay. So you got Cincinnati. Akron, that's a win. Houston Christian, that's a win. That's 3-0 before going to a Michigan team that's in shambles. You beat that Michigan team. You head to Michigan State. We don't know what to think about Michigan State. They're also not exactly a program that's a powerhouse right now. Head to Maryland. Not exactly a powerhouse right now. Minnesota always beats us, but maybe this year we finally won't do it. Northwestern stinks. USC, we should have beat them this year. UCLA, we should have beat them this year. Penn State, maybe that. Penn State's really like, if you look at the whole thing and then you add Iowa at the end, Penn State being like the top dog on there. USC has just really struggled. But besides that, we don't have Oregon. They took Wisconsin off, which kind of stinks because like we finally figured out how to beat Wisconsin, and they kind of stink.
Michigan could very well be very good again too.
Yeah, Michigan. Yeah, we'll see. I'm gonna hang on all season as if they're not gonna be good again. But as far as like top 10 teams playing in the playoff right now, it's just Penn State.
Crazy. Yeah.
It's not bad. I mean, you pull Ohio State off, you pull Oregon off. You know, it could be worse. It's a nice schedule. It's manageable, like we say it every single year. It's there on silver platter. If we just stop losing 1-score games every single week, every single season.
Yeah, I mean, when we had scheduled Cincinnati, which by the way is a little bit bizarre that game is a neutral site game, but just because I don't know how devout Cincinnati's fan base is, but like when we had scheduled Cincinnati, they had actually been coming off of a string of like a couple successful years, and so that was a bigger game then, and then they just stunk this year.
Good.
Oh, it is a big opener though. They're still a Big 12 team. They should be getting Big 12 talent, big opener, but that one stands out. Akron, Houston Christian. I love when there's a school that you have to look it up. Like you just
don't even know who they are.
Never heard of it. Fine, that's
a win. That's a win.
All before the Michigan game, and that's going to be the big showdown of September, and kind of similar to how Colorado was this year. But I like that it's a little later in September. It's a good layout there. October, that is a lot more manageable than I would say that it was this year. Like Michigan State, we'll see. They pulled off, they hung in there this year. Aiden Childs was good but not great. At Maryland's, perennially average. Minnesota, struggle bus this year. Pulled off somehow over 6 wins. Northwestern, stinky.
Thanks.
And then again, though, like our November is tough.
Yeah, I mean, it's on paper, that's 4 straight losses the way that, because the rule doesn't know how to win in November and we don't beat these teams. But also, like, we should have beat UCLA. We should have beat USC. We should have beat Iowa.
It's so similar to this year, how it's set up with those first 8 games.
It's a whole shoulda, woulda, coulda. It's a shoulda, woulda, coulda, like.
The first 4 in the last, or the first 8 in the last 4. It's like.
Crazy. Like, this year we should have beat Illinois. We should have beat UCLA. We should have beat USC. We should have beat Iowa. Like, unbelievably, we should have been like legitimately a 10-win team if we just don't make colossal, unbelievable mistakes. But it's favorable in the sense that there's no like, you're not looking at that schedule with a guaranteed Ohio State loss or a guaranteed Oregon loss or a guaranteed, like you don't have those on there. You got Penn State is like the only kind of one you're like, all right, that's a playoff team.
The auto loss, yeah.
Yeah, like you don't look at it like, oh, okay, so we're definitely losing to Oregon, we're definitely losing to Ohio State, we're definitely losing to a Michigan team that's going to go to playoff. Like, not really on there. So I don't know. It's on there. It's there for the taking.
I mean, the off-season title run has already started. We just signed a top 20 class. I think we're about to go bananas in the portal.
The portal is going to be, it's going to be unbelievable.
It's going to be nuts. I mean, every team has to cut down to 105. We're not the only team that has to deal with this. It's going to be the wildest year yet. Yes. And it starts, and it's all this month.
It's already starting.
There's going to be a couple Christmas presents. We're going to be forgetting about a lot of our own transfers pretty soon.
Well, the other crazy thing is all the players. Once all the players lose in the playoff is when all those guys will start to transfer too.
And then there's the spring portal period as well. But December is definitely when it's most active. There's a lot of things to look forward to. I think that there's the vibes around Husker Nation right now are low because we haven't started landing those hit guys yet. But let's say next week, we come in with 3 or 4 more former stud players. All of a sudden the vibes start to flip. And then you got the big old matchup in the Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl. That could be, it could be a launching pad for Nebraska or BC. BC's looking for its first 8-win season since 2009. Nebraska for its first bowl game since 2016. That's a huge matchup. And then you launch yourselves into the spring, and then we're off and running. And then the ramp is looking basically straight vertical for Nebraska again, all the way through that spring game.
Baby, here we go. All right. Thanks for joining us tonight, folks. Make sure you go to Underdog Fantasy, use promo code HuskGuys to get 50% match up to $1,000. Go to HuskerStore.com, shop for all of our awesome new Husker paraphernalia, great Huskers gear, get Huskers gift box for Christmas time, and pipeline-jerky.com also has some great Christmas gear for you. Thanks for listening, and go Big Red.